Welcome in, everyone, to another Doc Talk here with Sports Management Worldwide. My name is Ike Worth here in Portland, Oregon, headquarters of SMWW, welcoming you all here for this great Doc Talk. We're going to be having Dr. Lashbrook here, as always, joined by NHL agent Rick Curran, who is coming on board to actually teach and mentor our hockey agent class, something that we will probably be getting into a little later today. But just kind of some housekeeping rules for you all, for those that may not have joined our Doc Talks before. We will keep you all muted while we are having the initial interview section between Dr. Lashbrook and with Rick Curran. So please make sure that you are keeping your microphones muted. Feel free to use the chat box, though. Make sure to drop your LinkedIn links or just network. Let us know where you're from, what you're interested in doing in hockey, all that kind of good stuff. And then, of course, we do want to get to your questions. So in order to let us know that you have a question, click the raise hand button, which is at the bottom of the participants list, or on the bottom of your screen, you'll see the button that says reactions. And there's a button in that reactions section that says raise hand. We will get to your questions as soon as we can once Dr. Lashbrook and Rick Curran get through what they have to talk about. And then, of course, we want to hear from you guys. So without further ado, I am going to pass the mic to Dr. Lashbrook. Let's see. Let me find you there. All right, Dr. Lashbrook, take it away.
Thank you, Ike and Charisse and the whole staff. And we're going to have some fun here this hour. Thanks, everybody, for coming in. This is about you, and we'll have plenty of time, as Ike said, for questions. Rick, I'm going to welcome you in. And COVID for 2 years, and I can't wait to get back out and get on the ice by May. It's been a tough time, nothing we've ever experienced before. But Rick, coming in here before we teach this class, we wanted to do a doc talk. And Rick, I think we're going to keep this simple, but assuming you went to high school, I'd like you to take your time and walk us through your career steps and how you ended up where you are today. You've been very successful, but we all have a story. And believe it or not, every story is special, and it really makes your career special. So welcome in. Start out by from high school on, kind of how you got your career, and good, bad, or ugly. Rick, thanks for coming in.
Well, thanks for having me, Lynn. And of course, to all of your staff, I appreciate the time and effort in getting me ready for these classes.
Yeah.
I was actually just very fortunate. I was in high school. And of course, like most people growing up in Toronto, I played hockey, and I was fortunate enough to well, I guess it was about grade 12 or 13. I was fortunate enough to meet Bobby Orr. And frankly, what happened was we had a cottage up north. My grandparents had a cottage up north, and somebody bought the cottage next door. And and it happened to be an Alan Eagleson, who at the time was it was about 1966, 67. And it was the time that Alan was coming on the scene. He was starting the NHL Players Association. He was beginning his agency network. Of course, Bobby was his first premier client. Yeah. It was just prior to Bobby signing with the Boston Bruins. And at the time, what happened is they bought a local lodge and turned it into the Bobby Orr Mike Walton Sports Camp. And fortunately for my brother and I, Alan asked if we would like to go to work for the camp. And for 10 years, from the day the camp started to the day it closed, my brother and I worked there every summer for 10 weeks. That's great. But more importantly, that the people that we met over the course of those 10 summers were obviously, very instrumental in helping my career. Sure. Bill Waters, who was there the first day, was a former high school head of phys ed at a high school in Toronto. He left that to become the head man for the Orr Walton Sports Camp. He then was an assistant with Alan for his sports management firm, which really was one of the premier agencies at the time. And eventually Bill became my mentor. And when I went off to college in 1977,
Where'd you go to college?
I went to school at Merrimack College, just outside of Boston in North Andover.
Yeah.
And I was getting ready to graduate in 77. I came home at Christmas time. And I spent some time with Bill, who alluded to the fact that Alan Eagleson was given a mandate to control international hockey for Hockey Canada. And they were looking for somebody to head up one of the divisions. Fortunately, I was, being that they were familiar with the time I'd spent with them over the 10 years, they offered me the position. And so as a matter of fact, it was 45 years ago Tuesday. And I started February 1, 77. And my first job was business manager of Team Canada 77. Moved on to Team Canada 78 Juniors, which was the club that Wayne Gretzky had his coming out party. And then in 78, I did the Prague Team Canada. And then shortly thereafter, Lynn, I really had an interest in moving into Bill's office and working closer with him in the agency business. And that's really how I got started. So.
Wow. I love the story. And in our company, we have over 30,000 graduates. We try to create informational interviews. You never know who you meet, Rick, and we all can be blessed by people we run into and whatever our experiences. Rick, let's move on now with the agency. Your career as an agent, starting out, and kind of walk us through that. There's a lot of people that want to take your course. They want to learn that world, and we're so lucky to have you. It's one of our most popular courses, really how I started the company. We really laid low with hockey till we met somebody like you where we could meet and provide this platform. But let's talk about getting started in the agent world and focus on that for a moment.
Well, in 78, I moved over to Bill's office. And he, as I say, he ran Sports Management Limited for Alan Eagleson. He was his right-hand man and did the majority of the contracts. And essentially, I became his protege. And my primary responsibilities were recruiting, getting into the rinks. Bill was such a good mentor. He introduced me to some of the major general managers at the time. I know Harry Sinden runs a program with you. Harry was one of those people, Jimmy Devellano, Cliff Fletcher, Bill Torrey, people that pretty much were the premier general managers in the National Hockey League. And it was a tremendous opportunity to find an entry into the business of hockey with someone like Bill. He's quite a guy. Everybody enjoyed his company, and it was easy to follow him into the rooms and to meet the people. And so for a number of years, my primary responsibility was recruiting clients for our firm. And then at some point, it was probably about, I'd say the 84 draft was my first opportunity where we had 9 first-round picks, and it was my first opportunity to actually start negotiating contracts for some of those players that I had recruited over the prior 2 or 3 years. And over the course of the program, we'll talk about the differences then of recruiting, the ages, the challenges of recruiting at that time period versus the challenges of trying to recruit young players today and how different it is. And moving on, I was with Bill for a number of years. And then in 1980, quite frankly, as most might be aware, Bobby Orr left Alan Eagleson. Bill and I also left Alan Eagleson, formed our own company, Bernata Sports Management. And I continued to work with Bill for a number of years. And then he decided, he was one of the first that decided that he would like to move into management. And so I purchased the company from Bill, and Bill moved on to management with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And at that point, I made the decision to downsize our operation. We had, and we'll talk about this in the weeks to come, the differences between a big operation or a small operation. At the time, we pretty much had we represented the most NHL players at the time, but we were getting too big. I was very concerned that we didn't have the time to spend with the clients that we had spent so much time and effort to recruit. So I downsized the firm and did a couple of things that we'll talk about later in the weeks to come. And at that point, I just tried to, quite frankly, just tried to do the best job I could for the number of clients that I had. And then in 1991, frankly, my wife decided she would like to move back to the Philadelphia area, which is where she's from.
Right.
And at the time, I was fortunate to have representing 44 players in the National Hockey League. So I felt quite comfortable that I had enough clients that could sustain a business model, and I didn't need to be in Toronto area to recruit. And so we moved to Philadelphia, and from then on, continued to operate a business. As the players got older and retired, I was satisfied for the moment that was what was going to happen. And then in just about the year just prior to 2000, it was 1999. I was at the NHL draft in Pittsburgh, and I ran into Bobby Orr, whom I hadn't really seen for quite a while. We chatted a little bit in 1980 when he left Eagleson. I had spent some time with him at that time, but we really hadn't spent a lot of time since then. And we chatted for a bit, and then after the draft was over, and Bobby at the time was running a company called Wolf and Associates out of Boston. And it was a big company. It had football, baseball, golf, soccer, and a little bit of hockey, which Bobby was running for a gentleman there. And we sat down, and he asked me, he said, would you consider coming back together? And it was interesting, Lynn, because you have to remember that when I started working at the Orr Walton Sports Camp, I was 15 or 16 years old.
Sure.
I was a junior counselor. I was pretty much the bottom of the totem pole. And it was one of those where see and be seen, but don't be heard. It was just, it was just part of learning how to be around athletes. But the point I was going to make is it was just so strange. I was about to become a partner with Bobby. And it was, I had to, as I said to him, I said, how is this going to work? You know, I mean, you were my idol along with everyone else who idolized him at the time. And he was terrific. He said, listen, he said, you're the one that's been in the business this long. I'm kind of the rookie. He said, you know, I'll defer to you on those major decisions that have to do with the agency business, which I was very grateful for his support. So we did that. And then about within a couple of years, Lynn, quite frankly, the feeling was that if you want to be in the hockey business, you really want to be, in my mind, you wanted to be in the hockey business, not so much football, baseball, soccer, golf. And we wanted a little more control over the direction the company would take, the relationship that we'd have with clients. And so we made the decision. And again, I said to Bobby, I said, you know, you're the name. So at that point in 2002, we formed the Orr Hockey Group. And we've been going strong since then. And in the coming weeks, we'll talk a little bit about the history of the Orr Hockey Group and our affiliation with a couple of big companies that we instead of selling our company, we basically worked with another company. We'll talk about that as time goes on as well. And that's where
Rick,
we are today.
Yeah, and Rick, thanks for sharing that. I'm a football guy for 25 years. Jim Steiner was my mentor, and you're right, they're just different sports. But talking about all sports, let's talk about hockey coming out of the lockout and the salary cap. I know it changed our world when I started as an NFL agent versus the old days when there wasn't a salary cap. Talk a little bit about working through the salary cap as you represent clients, just in general terms. I know we'll talk about it in the course, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about the different recruiting from major juniors to NCAA to the pros and free agency. But let's talk a little bit the impact the salary cap was on the agent industry.
Well, it really has, Lynn. Of course, prior to that, when there wasn't a salary cap, you enjoyed dealing with the teams that were, we had the rich teams and the not so rich teams. And,
right.
You dealt with everyone, but you obviously, if you had a free agent, you hope that the wealthy teams would run the market. And prior to salary cap, it really was pretty much a market that was predicated on the value of the player and what a team felt they could pay somebody. And then, which was a wonderful situation for agents, because as I used to say, you get a player that would sign and then you would either piggyback on that contract, or you would leapfrog over it. And that's really how the market would grow. And there really wasn't any concern about how high the market could go. It was just virtually how much money could be spent. And it was interesting. I just mentioned to somebody earlier, I remember when, I won't name him, but I remember when a certain gentleman became the general manager of the New York Rangers, and he said he had an unlimited budget and he exceeded it. So you could spend whatever you wanted. When the salary cap came in, and of course, that was the answer to, we had spent a whole year out of hockey.
Yeah, of course.
I think that the owners had decided that, having lost a season and the revenues that came with it, that the only way that they could justify coming back and letting the game start again was they needed cost certainty from a salary standpoint. Virtually what they wanted was they wanted protection from themselves.
Absolutely.
From an agent standpoint, from a players association standpoint, our position was, look, I mean, you can't expect us to govern what you're going to spend or not spend. And they said, no, we do expect you to help in this, because they knew that up to that point, we had a pretty good run at it. And the salary cap, it brought in a whole different aspect to everything, because teams obviously had to recognize, they had to allocate their money. We used to call it the pyramid, where you had your top players at the top, you had the middle section and the bottom. And obviously from an agent and from a players association standpoint, we were concerned that, eventually the bottom of the pyramid wouldn't be making that much. And how it was going to have an effect, it was early in those years. It was after the lockouts. It was 2005, if I recall. And we knew it was going to take some time to figure out what the net effect would be. And it has taken time. And at the salary cap has continued to be a major part of contract structure, of the aspect of negotiating a contract. You have to, as an agent, you have to recognize the limits of what a team can spend. And again, there'll be conversations that we'll have in the weeks to come about some of the challenges and what we thought were solutions that might have worked out had they done it a little differently. And so we still live with the salary cap. And of course, what came out of the salary cap was escrow, which is such a huge part of the game today, which we'll talk about later. But those are two of the most recent occurrences in the business of hockey that have pretty much dictated what the business of hockey is all about today.
Rick, before we go to our callers, we got Eric Solom. I have two more quick questions. The landscape. I was an athletic director at Alaska, University of Alaska, and of course Don Lucia was my young coach. Went on to a very successful career at Minnesota. I remember sitting in CCHA and WCHA and the commissioners from the Eastern two conferences and Bill Bagan and all that, and fighting the NCAA rules. And of course, the NCAA and NIL has gone through a seismic shift. I'm not even sure what the blend will be between major juniors, NCAA, et cetera. Talk a little bit about the growth of hockey recruiting, including international. Let's face it, hockey is growing. Commissioner Bettman, I think, has done an outstanding job in the game of hockey, but what's happened in North America, NCAA and major juniors. Talk a little bit to the students before we take questions about where the talent is. I think it's changed since 40 years ago when you started.
Well, it certainly has. When I started, Lynn, and again, I was as much as trying to build a business. Right. And I was focused primarily with the Canadian Major Junior Hockey League. I lived in Toronto. I was in the Oshawa area. That was my home. The Oshawa Generals were my home rink. Right. I spent most of the time traveling across the Ontario Hockey League, which at the time ran from, well, eventually Belleville and all the way to the Windsor Spitfires on the other side. And then Detroit came in. From a talent standpoint, I literally built the business. When I say I mean, we literally built the business on the basis, and all my competition were doing the same thing. The idea was, theoretically, if you could recruit for the Ontario Hockey League's major junior draft, which were 15 and 16-year-olds, if you recruited well enough for that draft, it would stand to reason that a year or two down the road, your NHL draft would be very healthy. So from an agent standpoint, your focus was watching, midget hockey games, because that was the midget draft. It's now gone to a Bantam draft. But if you were successful in recruiting for the Ontario Hockey League draft, you would at least have a fair share of the top talent for the NHL draft following that. There were some agents that worked primarily with the colleges. There was a gentleman by the name of Art Kaminsky, who was very much part of the early days. He was a Cornell grad. He was very, very close with a number of the college players that were the Miracle team on ice. And he spent quite a bit of time in that area, and he was extremely successful. And he opened up and made everyone aware of the number of quality college players. And over the years, of course, a number of college players have come out of there, and particularly free agents. Initially, they were more free agents because they were older players. Some of them had been drafted to the Canadian Hockey League and decided education was the direction they wanted to take. And then over the course of time, following that 80 Miracle on Ice, you had a lot more hockey programs in the US. Absolutely. And as those programs developed, you had a number of terrific young talent coming out of there that stayed in the colleges, went to prep schools. Then prep schools became a primary area for recruiting. And then your colleges, and then following the WHA and the number of European players that came over to play, particularly in Winnipeg. And frankly, that's where one of the premier agents of the early days came out of the
don't worry, we forget. Right, you and I will.
He had the WHA, and he brought a lot of the players from Sweden over. And and they were so successful that all of a sudden teams realized that there was some real talent. Of course, Toronto brought over Boris Salmine, and as difficult and challenging as it was for those players, eventually, the teams recognized the value of having European scouts and bringing in the talent from that area. But the guy that I was going to refer to is Don Baisley, and he passed away a short while ago. And even though the agent community has grown, in the early days, it was a small community, and we all looked at Don as being kind of our guy. He was, even though it was very competitive, if you had questions or concerns, if you just wanted to bounce something off someone, Don was the guy that you would call. And I really believe that he was instrumental in bringing a lot of the Europeans over and exposing their talent to the National Hockey League.
You know, Rick, as I go to Eric Solomon, I will tell you this. We do all sports and we'll be up there for the NHL draft. And I've always said this, the NHL draft and the culture of hockey is very special. And I will say that. And I do all the sports. Let's go to Eric Solomon with your introduction and question for Rick. Eric, thanks for coming in.
Hey, Dr. Lashbrook. Hey, Rick. How you doing? First of all, last night I watched a movie.
Go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
I can
I
now.
want you
Go
to get
ahead.
a better one. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm getting on microphone. I'm getting that to work. Sorry. I'm Eric Solomon. I work for the International Sports Academy. I'm in the basketball business, but I played ice hockey when I was little, and I saw this doc talk, and I just had to be on it. And I researched all you did, and just such a long history. And my question is, out of all the years that you worked in the hockey business, what is the hardest part of being such a super agent and being so successful?
Good question, Eric. Thank you.
Well, I don't know whether I'm the super agent, but I will tell you this, Eric. The most gratifying part of the business are the people. And I think if there's not so much a challenge as a disappointment at times, is as you recruit somebody and you grow with them through the formative years of their career, you're just hoping so much for their success, and you're trying to do everything you can. And there are times when the reality is the player just isn't good enough to play. And it's very frustrating for them because they've given, their whole life to it. And you feel for them, Eric. And I think that if there's a part of the business that's difficult, it's that time, particularly for those that have been successful and are coming to the end of their career. And at this stage, I've got a number of those players, and it's so hard for them to accept that their career is over. They look at the games and they say, I know I can still play. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Brian Boyle has had a long and successful career since the day he was drafted by Los Angeles in the first round. A year ago, and he was coming off a season with the Florida Panthers, and then all of a sudden, training camp is coming around. He didn't get back on with Florida. COVID hits. There's a real uncertainty to the season. There's a delay. And Brian Boyle skated every day in the Boston area in the hope that he could eventually play. And every day you're talking to him, and it's agonizing because he's frustrated. He knows he can play. It's frustrating as an agent because he can play, but you also have to recognize that it's timing. There just weren't those opportunities. Now, in Brian's case, at the end of the year, he was fortunate enough to go and play for Team USA at the World Championships. He played so well that at the conclusion, I had a call from the people in Pittsburgh, and Ron Hextall suggested that they were very impressed with his play and suggested they'd be interested. And as you look at the lineup today in Pittsburgh, Brian Boyle is playing an active role on the Pittsburgh Penguins.
It's a great story.
But that's a success story. But there are a number of other players that as they get to the end of their career, Eric, they know they can play, but those opportunities just aren't there. And then eventually what you hope to do is, recognizing their value, is attempt to transition their playing days into maybe a job with the club, maybe as a part-time scout, maybe as part of their development program, working with forwards or defensemen, things of that nature. And that's what, as an agent, that's what you're trying to do. If you've got a quality person who has a quality reputation, that's what you try to do, is move them into those areas.
Rick, thank you so much. We're going to go to Nick Gentleman. Nick came to us. He's passionate about hockey. He's doing a great job for us in the agent advisor program. I know he's more excited than anybody to get a chance to take your course and be with you. Nick, come in with your introduction and question for Rick. Thanks for coming in.
So first off, Rick, it's an honor to be here. My name is Nick Gentleman. I am from Halifax, Nova Scotia. I graduated from the athlete management course back in 2020. I now work for SMWW as a hockey agent advisor. I have a very strong draft class coming up for this year's Q draft. 3 of the top 40 ranked players right now. And there's a lot after that. I also own my own company called Platinum Talent Agency, where we represent clients for individual sports. I'll be at the NFL Combine this year, all that stuff. But anyways, my question to you is, I have received the material from the NHL to become a certified agent. The one thing I'm lacking right now is the obvious part of needing either a contract for a player who's an unsigned prospect, or one of those variations that they require. And I've been very focused on building up my prospect pool, so I'm big in the 05, 06s, 07s. But I was curious if sorry, I got a call coming there. Hopefully you can hear me. But I was curious if there's a particular way to scout in an area where a lot of the players already have agents. Is there a particular way to go about not so much poaching, but presenting yourself and saying, hey, if you want a new change of scenery, here's this option, right?
And Rick, that's a fair question. Let me take it right here. Rick, that's a fair question. We obviously don't believe in poaching. We don't, quote, allow it. But Rick, go ahead with Nick's question. And that is a catch-22 getting certified till you get a client. And how do you get a client without being certified? I love the question. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, first of all, Nick, as Lynn has already alluded to, the quality agents don't poach clients. Quite frankly, quickly going back to when Bobby was with Wolf and Associates, the reason that I suggested we leave is there was the head of the company had a meeting one day, and I quickly realized the meeting was all about the agents in the room who are supposed to make the list of players whose contracts were up, and we're supposed to start contacting them. And at that point, I turned to Bobby. I said, Bobby, I haven't stole a client off of anybody in 30 years. I said, I'm not going to start now. And I said, I think this is time to leave. So in answer to your question, Nick, I mean, it's very unprofessional. I will admit that it goes on. It's really unfortunate because it does go on. That's one of the major changes in the business that we'll talk about in the weeks ahead. But as a young man who has and I'm often asked this, as a young hockey enthusiast who is able to look at 05s, 06s, and again, starting the challenge of recognizing where the talent is and creating a relationship, which is so important with the player and his parents. One of the biggest challenges you're going to have will be that you'll have a really good player. Well, first of all, you recruit the player and you really, you live with them, you live and die with them, and you hope that he's the player that you expect him to be. And he's a high draft pick. And one of the concerns you're going to have is that one of the major companies will come along and suggest to the parents and the young man that this guy's done a terrific job for you, but this is a very important decision you're going to have to make. And are you sure that you're going to leave it in his hands? And what I suggest to a lot of people who have maybe 3 or 4 top players is become affiliated in some way with an established firm, which will provide 2 things. The first thing it provides is a little bit of protection, because when you're protected by one of the major companies, it's not as likely that someone is going to come in and steal your clients. It provides a little bit of credibility for you. And from there, you should be able to begin the process of being certified. Now, I'll tell you what's going on with the certification process, because one of the younger fellas that's in our firm has just become certified. And it is quite a process. And they've had a number of problems. The Players Association have encountered a number of recent problems where, because there are so many more people trying to get into the business and they are successful in recruiting, they've had a propensity to start negotiating contracts on some of their players' behalf, and they're not entitled to do that. They're not certified. And it's created some problems with some of the clubs, and quite frankly, they've come down hard on them. And I'm aware of a couple of these younger people that were scouts, recruiters, who attempted to actually negotiate a contract with the intent of impressing their younger client that they're capable, and the contract was nullified. And that particular, well, there's two cases that I'm familiar with, were denied certification. And so they've effectively put them out of contention to be certified, which if they want to be successful in any way, they're going to have to be certified. But the process as it occurs, if you have somebody that you believe is going to be a National Hockey League player, you go to the Players Association, ask for the application, and go through the process. They're very welcoming if you handle it in the appropriate way.
That's such great advice, Rick. We have the same challenges in the NFL, and our company gets people exposed, and we talk about, you always ask who your clients are to get that first one. It's all about relationships, but you're absolutely right. Let's go to Michael Christina with your introduction and question for Rick. Mike, welcome in.
Great. Yeah. Hi, everyone. First of all, Rick, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Michael Cressito. I'm coming to you from New York City. I'm a current graduate student at Columbia University, studying sports and entertainment, business, and law. Just curious what your advice would be to someone trying to break into the industry. Would you advise them to potentially go work at an agency within a mailroom and try to build their way up within the agency, or go work maybe within a team in hockey operations and then kind of build some credibility there before moving over to the agency side? Just what path are you seeing is working the most with some of the younger guys trying to come into the agency world?
Great
well, Michael, I'll tell you, the advice that I give everyone is take advantage of any and all opportunities that you might have to become affiliated either on the management with a team side or with another company as an intern. I've suggested to people who ask me that question to look for opportunities where you look for an opportunity where you can be an inexpensive addition to either a team at any level or to an agency that you feel comfortable enough that you can trust. And what you want to do is be able to provide them with a service, provide them with something that they might need. And what you are really looking to do is establish yourself and your reputation as someone who's an extremely hard worker, extremely competent, and someone who has integrity and will take advantage of every opportunity to better themselves and put themselves in a position to better the team that they're working for or the agency that they're working for. Over the years, we've had a number of young people that interned for us, and from there grew into full-time positions.
Absolutely.
And there are a couple of those people that came to us from American Hockey League teams. They were able to get a position as an intern with local teams. A couple of them were with college teams. Any opportunity you have to gain some experience and to be able to put on your resume, and most important is to be able to provide a name that if you're looking for a position and you can say, if you would like to call this person, I'd like to think they'll give me a good recommendation. As I tell people, what you want to do at any level that you're at, you find the guy that's the decision maker. You find the guy that's the mover and shaker. You find the guy that you you have to find a guy that you respect,
Yeah.
and you make yourself his most valuable player.
Right.
You make yourself a guy that he can't do without.
Right.
And once you have been able to attain that with that person, as he goes and grows, he's taking you with him.
Great stuff, Rick. We're going to go to Carter Goff. And Rick, I will say this. We're building an umbrella. We're having a lot of success in football and basketball where those agent advisors and no strings attached. We try to help them get started. We want them all to be successful. Once they get that first client, they really can start their business. I always call it the Ralph rule. If you get a Ralph Dawkins out of Louisville, this is football, walk-on or not an undrafted free agent. He had a younger brother named Brian, an NFL Hall of Famer of your Philadelphia Eagles, if I may. But that's kind of our philosophy down the road in this global footprint of talent. So let's go to Carter Goff with your introduction for Rick. Keep the ball rolling there. Keep the puck going. Go ahead, Carter.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Rick, for being here. And thank you, Dr. Lashbrook, for having me. But I guess my question's pretty similar, but
Where
I guess
you
I'll try
located?
to. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm in Edmonton. I go to the University of Alberta. So I'm just going into my last year of my bachelor degree in commerce. And I'm currently also interning and working with Manny Schmidt and the Link management team out here in Edmonton.
Okay.
So I guess similar question, just kind of what kind of advice would you have for someone young trying to get into the business, and I guess in a nuance for today's hockey world, maybe how is it different today, and how can someone like myself really get ahead, whether it be on the agency side or potentially on the operations side?
Yeah.
Well, again, Carter, it's almost the same. It's similar to what I just suggested. You have to find an opportunity with a team, whether it's a local club, university team, your University of Alberta. They have a tremendous hockey program, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you start there where you try to see if there's something you can do to contribute to that program. Of course, the Oilers are there. They have a junior team that's there. I'm not going to suggest it's not without its challenges.
Right.
But if I lived in Edmonton, I would focus my attention on the junior team as a way of maybe getting noticed. There's an affiliation there. Kenny Holland's always looking for good people.
Yeah.
And year by year, as these staffs are expanding, you want to put yourself in a position where there's somebody there that recognizes your ambition and your work ethic, and suggests that this is the guy that maybe you should interview. A friend of mine that just took over as the president of operations for the Vancouver Canucks, Jim Rutherford, is going through that process right now. And Jim is one of those guys, in spite of the fact he's been around for so long, he was looking outside the box.
Yeah.
He wasn't looking necessarily to just go with the old crowd. He was looking for people that had different experiences. And for young people today, with the analytics and with the way it works with the salary cap, if you've got some people coming in with some fresh ideas, a guy like Jim Rutherford, if he's successful in Vancouver, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those other teams start looking around and recognizing the need to bring in some fresh blood.
I agree. And Rick, great advice. Before I go to Burton Peck, I want to also, I'm really proud of the growth of our company when it comes to opportunity to talk to people like you and coming to the draft. Ken Holland speaks many years at the draft now that we're out of COVID, but it's a great networking. We're trying to be an accelerator so you don't have to have the somebody that has the cottage next door to get your break. We're trying to create those cottages, if I may. It's called a cottage industry, if I can be, no pun intended. But let's go to Burton Peck. Burton, come on in with your introduction. Rick, hang in there. We're having fun here. We'll get a few more questions in before the top of the hour. Burton, come on in.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Curran and Dr. Lashbrook, great to see you. My name is Bert Peck, and I'm at the kind of at the other end of the spectrum. You mentioned Jimmy Rutherford. I saw one of my first NHL games I saw at the Montreal Forum. Jimmy Rutherford was in goal, so that'll give you a little bit of.
Oh, that's terrific. Now he was in Detroit, Burton. He was in Detroit.
It was with Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Okay.
Yeah, that tells you my age, so you know that now.
That's all right.
I'm a teacher, and I also have, I've got one more course to complete through sports management for the front office package. But I've got a question, and it's really, I've always thought that this was a possible area. Who represents the NHL coaches, and who represents the major junior coaches, the Division I and the Division III college hockey coaches?
Okay. It's a good question, Burton. It's a good question. There was a time when any agent could represent any of the coaches. I had one. I had a gentleman that was coaching the New York Rangers, and everything went well, except that all of a sudden he found he couldn't fly. So, which is a real deterrent when you're a coach in the National Hockey League. He had some health problems and he couldn't fly. And Tommy Webster was a wonderful coach. And again, this goes back to what I say earlier. You meet people along your road. And Tommy was one of those guys. He was a guy that coached the Windsor Spitfires for Jim Rutherford. And that's how I got to know him. And Tommy was a former player in the National Hockey League and the WHA, but I'm not to get off topic. So I represented Tommy with his contracts with the New York Rangers. Shortly thereafter, the league mandated with the Players Association that certified agents could no longer represent coaches. Now, a couple of the firms, what they did, for example, Newport, the Toronto Donnie Meehan's group, they had an attorney there that was not certified, but took advantage of an opportunity, and rightly so. And he became an agent for a number of coaches. There are 3 or 4 prominent people who represent coaches and general managers in the National Hockey League. There was a time where GMs and coaches pretty much sought out their own positions, and in many cases they were they went from being players to behind the bench as assistants and things of that nature. But because of the competition, more and more of them are seeking out agents. And again, there are 2 or 3 people out there that are prominent in that end of the business. And they do a great job. And you're right. That's a great area to consider to at least get into.
You know, Rick, when I started, I saw it in football, the representing both, whether it's the head coach in college or the coach in or the GM in the NFL. I found ourselves in some conflicting of interest, if I may, with expectations of the agent of the coach. I saw so much of it. We kind of don't do it with our company. Some NBA and NHL also have that rule. I definitely understand that rule.
Well, here,
let's go to
go ahead, Lynn, just on that topic, the reason that the league decided, because there were a couple of cases that were perceptively inappropriate.
Right.
The reality is, I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, any agent can call any coach and have a conversation with them. And anybody who's naive enough to think that I could call a Tommy Webster and say, I want Adam Graves to get more ice time. I mean, that's ridiculous. First of all, I never asked. And second of all, it just doesn't happen that way. But I think at the same time, I don't represent players, but I have at least a dozen former clients that are current coaches or assistant coaches in the National Hockey League. And I didn't represent them as an agent, but I I promoted them as possible candidates to different GMs
Of
that I knew.
course.
I knew they were looking for a coach. And I
Yeah.
say, well, how about this guy or that guy? Or we'd have conversations. And I wouldn't get into negotiating the deal, but you can
Yeah.
certainly promote them and enhance their opportunities to getting the job.
I
So-
definitely respect that conversation. I agree with you. Relationships last forever, and either way you're involved, whether it's commission or not. Let's go to Michael Collier with your introduction and question for Rick.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Lashbrook, for doing this doc talk. Mr. Curran, it's an honor and pleasure to be on this call with you. I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia. My question is, over the years of your very distinguished being a hockey player agent and representing young men who are skillful hockey players, I'm just curious, what has been the most special thing to you, or the thing you've been most proud of over the years in that capacity in your role?
Good question.
It is a good question. You know, there are a number of things I could suggest. I'd have to give more thought to that. But I'll tell you one of the things that was very gratifying. My son, who's now in the business with me, was traveling, and he was meeting with someone from one of the equipment companies.
Mhm.
And while he was there, he was introduced to the vice president of operations. And he said to Michael, and they had had a conversation about one of our clients because they were talking about an endorsement deal. And he said to him, he said, you know, Mike, he said, your dad represented me when I was a player, when I was a junior player. And he said, I have to tell you, he said, I wanted so desperately to play in the National Hockey League. And he said, your dad gave me all the time that he could and did everything he could to enhance my possibility of playing. And at one time he sat down with my mom and my dad and I, and had to tell me that I wasn't going to be a National Hockey League player. And he had already, this is the player that I had previously negotiated a schoolboy contract for, so that in the event he finished his junior career and didn't sign a contract, his education was completely paid for at any Canadian university or college. And he told my son, he said, he gave me the best advice, he said, to go to school. And when Michael came home and he named the player, and I was like, shit, I remember that guy. And he was a great kid, and his parents were wonderful people. And so you asked me that question. The reality is sometimes it's just the little stuff that you know that maybe in some way it wasn't a big contract that you got for him, but it was giving him the advice and guidance that he needed. That it was hard, but it was the right thing to do. And I always told parents in the old days when I would sit in their living room, I said, look, I can't guarantee that your son is going to play in the National Hockey League, but I will give him my best effort. And here's what I'm going to say to you. A couple of things. Number one, I'm going to tell you what you need to know. It may not be what you want to hear, but I'm going to tell you what you need to know. And the second thing I'm going to tell you is that I'll try to treat your son as if he was my own son.
Yeah.
But I will expect the same from him that I expect from my son.
Yeah.
And if he goes AWOL, I'm going to kick his ass. And you have to understand that, because it's my reputation on his behalf that's important on his behalf. So
great
anyway.
stuff, Rick. That's why we invited you in. You're part of the family. We're lucky to have you. Two more questions, Rick, and then Ike will take a wrap up here, and we'll get you back to the Florida Sun. And Liz wants to make sure you got that Caesar salad and everything. Let's go to David Baston with your introduction. David, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Dr. Lashbrook. Rick, thank you too, and Liz and the staff for the invitation. This is great. Alumni, a couple of courses, so I don't see any familiar faces, but I'm sure there's some on here somewhere. And long-term corporate career where I got one of those invitations to pursue other things, and it ended up being my second career in hockey coaching. So I'm with the Anaheim Ducks Youth Hockey Organization. Wish they'd started about 35 or 40 years ago, but covering a lot of their grassroots development programs and just having a ball, absolutely having a ball. But also we'll continue to explore all avenues for hockey employment. And I remember in that corporate career very early on, we had a talk from a client. We invited a client in who was asked, why did you hire us? We were asking one of our big clients, why us versus someone else? And everyone was expecting the technical answer, skills, something in the kind of finer arts of what we do. And he paused for a very long time. And at the end of it, he said, I just hired you because I liked you. and he stopped and paused some more and then extrapolated a bit on what he meant by that. So Rick, I'd be interested in the agency business, likability, of course, but how would you define the people skill, communication skill, relational skill set that distinguishes the very best agents, knowing it's so competitive out there? Everyone can smile, everyone can shake a hand, everyone probably can talk. But what do you think are maybe the one or two or three absolute relational differentiators when you talk about the best of the best?
Great question.
At the risk of, I'm not trying to be vulgar, but we have a saying. It's your give a shit meter has to be as high as it can possibly go.
Go with that.
It's you've got to really care. When you walk into a living room and sell yourself to a young player and his parents, and you're really selling yourself to the parents because they make the decisions at that age. You can be smooth. You can be, and there's lots of that.
Yeah.
But what you really have to make them believe is that you care. And I always tell them, I said, by virtue of being here in the living room, I believe that your son has a possibility of playing. And if he plays, he's obviously going to need he's going to need someone to handle it. But what we try to do as well is assure them that we're going to be there for them along the process. But we can't guarantee they're going to be successful National Hockey League players, because that's a dangerous area to start guaranteeing things that you had no control over. And what you really just have to do is you have to get them to recognize your sincerity, that you want to help them. And I always just sell, I say, look, we're all in this together. I mean, I will never know your son as well as you know him, but together, collectively, we're going to try to, get him on the right path, get the development, and put him in a position where he can be the best player he can be, and hope that means he can eventually play in the National Hockey League. I remind them, this is not a hobby for me. This is a business.
Yeah.
And we'll talk in weeks to come about the business model and how challenging it is now, even more so than it was in the early days. But you're all in this together. And when you walk out of that room, the family's got to believe that you are in it for them. And I have to tell you, there are a number of situations where we had young men that were not good enough eventually to play, but we had to hang right in there and make sure that they got to the right colleges, that the right opportunities were there for them. And as to an earlier question about some of the more satisfying moments, I mean, I could give you a number of, contracts and say how great it was, but it's when you've got somebody that didn't make it, like this fellow that worked for the equipment company, but is successful in another way, and remembers that you gave him the right advice or guidance, or that you were supportive of him all the way through. That's just really important.
Oh, great
And
answer.
I always tell my guys,
Great.
your best sales pitch is the good work you've done for somebody else, whether they made it to the NHL or not.
Right.
And it's just so important.
So one more question here for you, Rick, and then for Spencer Beer. Speaking of beer, we tell people they can drink beer in our class. We can't make them. We can't stop them. But let's go to Spencer Beer. Then, Rick, we'll get you back to that Florida Sun, and Ike will come in and introduce a few people, Mike Oak and everything. Rick, I'm just thrilled about this Doc Talk. I can't tell you how much fun it is to get to know you and ready to host you for the chat. Let's go to Rick, Spencer Beer. Go ahead, Spencer.
Hey, thanks. I'm happy to be here, and it's awesome that you were able to come into this, Rick, and thanks for hosting there, Mr. Lashbrook.
Thank you.
I'm a hockey agent advisor here with SMWW, and right now my main question is, one, I'm excited for starting up here next week, I believe it is, in your classes. I know there's going to be a wealth of information there. Right now, the couple players that I'm working with are junior or college in their final year of college. What is your advice, kind of the best way to build that Europe network outside of, like, right now I do a lot of with LinkedIn, even just cold calling a couple scouts and had talks with them. But kind of there's so many leagues in Europe now that these youth sports players specifically like to go and carve out a short pro career in.
Yeah.
What is a good avenue, I guess, to build those networks out there?
A couple of ideas. Spencer, first of all, if the kids are coming out of college, if they're capable of playing in the East Coast League, which is a much better league today than it ever was.
Right.
Yeah.
It's primarily a lot of the good college players that, for one reason or another, didn't, make it to an NHL or American Hockey League level, but they still want to play. And a lot of the European teams, they really need a benchmark. And I've found that particularly for unknown college kids, if they go to the East Coast League and establish their credentials, come up with a record of some sort, it's a lot easier for them to move to Europe from the East Coast League.
Interesting.
Because you could actually sit and look, I got this young guy, he came out of Cornell University, he's a bright guy. He may be a little too small to play in the National Hockey League, but he's a great skater, good playmaker. I put him with the Florida Everblades. He had 25 goals last year. If you check with the people, they'll tell you that he's a great person on and off the ice, and he's looking for a different experience. He's looking to, travel to Europe. He's looking to play in the Swiss League, make some money, travel a little bit. And so I suggest that, Spencer, as a way to introduce your players to the European people. Now, there are so many websites available for European hockey. And, the top market obviously is the KHL, which you kind of want to stay away from because you never know if they're going to get paid. You know if they're going to get home.
Most of the guys, even I find, they're always talking like the DEL. Everyone loves the idea of playing there, and it pays good, and it's.
I'll tell you, Spencer, you're so right. The DEL is terrific. The Swiss League is very good. Okay, the two top leagues are in Sweden and Finland, but that's a little more for guys that are, you can only have so many imports. And again, Spencer, it's a whole other area. You got to know how that works. Right. But I always loved the DEL. We used to put a lot of our guys in the DEL. The money wasn't as good as the others, but it was a lot of fun. They traveled. I had a couple of guys that retired but still felt they could play. And I had to give them the news that it wasn't going to be in the National Hockey League. And the one guy, he went to Switzerland and took his wife and two children and had just a tremendous year playing and traveling. And he said to me when he got back, he said, that was the way to end my career. He said, I was so happy. And I said, well, that's good. You want to go to work? And I got him a job as a scout and for one of the teams that he had played for. He was just a really good person. So I think the European option is a terrific one for guys who are starting out, as well as for guys that are coming to an end.
Rick, I want to thank you so much. I'm so excited about next week. I love hockey. I can't wait to see everybody back at the NHL draft in Montreal. It's been a long time, Rick, and I can't wait to work with you every week. I think you're going to find these students as inspiring. They're going to ask good questions. Harry Sinding calls it therapy when he comes in every week and talks to our hockey students. So, Rick, thank you for joining. Ike, I'm going to pass the mic. I'll stay in. You can talk to Jeff and Mike. Rick, have a good weekend. We'll see you next week. And all you have to do is come, and you don't even have to prepare because I think
Lynn,
it's all up there.
I appreciate it, Lynn. I'm looking for it. I'm looking for it. I really do love the opportunities where you're just sitting and talking and you get questions and you can just, I'll tell you, it's an opportunity for me to reminisce a little bit on different things, which I love to do. And as long as I can watch my language, I think this is going to be just a tremendous.
And here you can get away with it. Thank you, Rick. Have a good
Yeah,
weekend
thanks,
coming
Rick.
up. Thank
All
you.
right.
God
Have a
bless.
great
Ike,
weekend.
I'm gonna
Thanks,
pass the
everybody.
mic to you. I'll stay in and listen, Ike. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Sounds great. And thank you again to Rick and to Dr. Lashbrook for hosting that. As Dr. Lashbrook kind of alluded to, Rick Curran's first class with us starts next week, the week of February 7th. He has his chats on Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. So for those that are looking to get signed up for that class, registration is still open. We do cut off enrollment here in just a few seats. It is filling up pretty quickly, as you guys can imagine. Rick is a wealth of knowledge, as we saw here over the last hour. So even if you're looking to learn a little bit more than just the agency business, Rick can really kind of talk about the whole business of hockey. So it's going to be an agent course, but I think if you're interested in the front office, analytics, or really just most of the business side of hockey, joining into Rick's class is going to be very, very informative for you all. But we also have a couple of other instructors who are in the hockey industry that I wanted to bring up, have them introduce themselves to you guys, have them share a little bit about their background, what they do, what they teach, and kind of share their information. So Mike and Jeff, I'm going to bring you up here. Let's see. Here's Jeff. Jeff, go ahead and start your video, and Mike, let's bring you on. We have Mike Oak here and Jeff Baidu. Mike Oak is the GM for the Peterborough Petes, and he teaches our hockey GM and scouting class. And then we have Jeff Baidu, who is with the Minnesota Wild in their fan engagement, I believe, department. He's an account executive with them. He teaches he teaches our sports sales and marketing class. So Jeff, good to see you. Let's get your microphone unmuted. Go ahead. Go ahead and introduce yourself, kind of what your background is in hockey. You're obviously an alumni of ours, but I mean, there's so much more to your background, and then would love to hear a little bit about your class, because obviously every sports team needs butts and seats, and you kind of help get people there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much again. This was awesome. Always amazing hearing from Rick and, fellow folks in the hockey world. Yeah. So my name is Jeff Baidu. I'm currently in my 8th season with the Minnesota Wild in the front office in our customer service and retention team, also known as fan engagement, fan relations. Started off in new business development for the first 2 seasons and have been in customer service and retention for the past 6. Been a hockey fan my whole life. I was born in Edmonton, Alberta, lived in Winnipeg before moving to Minnesota. So I've been in some pretty impressive hockey markets and huge fan of the sport. Obviously my paychecks say Wild now, so that's what I root for. And it's pretty easy to do so this season. So I'm an alum of SMWW, taken quite a few courses. Started with hockey gym and scouting back in 2012. And then, just continued to take courses since then. I've taken hockey analytics, history of hockey, Hockey Hall of Fame with Phil Pritchard. Yeah, so I've been in quite a few courses, and now I'm teaching and working with students to mentor the sports and marketing course, which is a really awesome and unique way. I mean, obviously, as a Canadian kid, playing in the NHL was my dream. And when you find yourself working in a front office, even if you couldn't be a part of one, being on the ice is pretty unique. So great opportunities present themselves in every one of the courses we've had so far. We've had some really amazing success stories. One of the very first students in the course is actually working in the front office with the Minnesota Wild with me. So we've got some really cool, unique opportunities to learn more about the sport and of course sports and sales marketing. It's not specific to just hockey, of course, but we are happy to kind of be that catalyst that gets the ignition going to get you in the front door in sports. Just like Dr. Lashbrook says, you can't catch the foul ball unless you've got a ticket. So make sure you're up front and ready to do so. And I'm happy to be a part of that journey.
Yeah, definitely. We're thrilled to have you a part of kind of our team of mentors, and someone of your background and expertise obviously is a very natural fit for what that class kind of teaches. And on that note, what can you kind of share a little bit about what you like to go over across the 8 weeks? All of our classes obviously fit that 8-week model. And students get the 1-hour Zoom chats with you along with the rest of their coursework. But what's kind of some of the highlights of what you get to touch on for that class?
Yeah, so some of the reading materials you get a chance to view and keep and have as in your library will be things that the great Bill Gertine has worked on, and I've got a chance to meet with him personally. He was here in the front office to kind of go over the sales tactics with our team. So I've had quite a few experiences with Bill Gertine, and his textbooks will be what you read in the course. One of the main materials, in fact. So we are actually a course that's it's really quite the variety of discussion, really talking about what it's like to be a part of a team in sports that kind of drives the front office. Truly the heartbeat and the pulse of an organization is that revenue stream that oftentimes gets overlooked from an inside sales team or what have you, but is a very, very vital part of the organization. So we talk about that, and we just get in depth with whatever questions and concerns come up with all the materials you've read. And I talk about some of the real life experiences, having been an account rep for many seasons in the NHL. We work very closely with our AHL affiliate in Iowa, and I've got some experiences and some networked opportunities from that. So yeah, and of course, I'm happy to bring in guest speakers, folks from the Wild organization who might have their hand in different parts of the organization than I do, and can serve as a resource for those in the course as well. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for 8 weeks to go over as much information as we can, and you get as many questions answered, and hopefully land a job in sports.
Definitely. Well, and I think something that we probably have all heard, but one of the best ways to break in is through the ticket office. I mean, that's whether it's inside sales or whatever it may be. I'm sure you can really speak to the fact that once you kind of learn that knowledge and really be able to grow from the ground up, I mean, getting your foot in the door, ticket sales is probably the most common, if not the best way to do it. Wouldn't you say?
It certainly is. And we're in a space, and for example, our front office, we walk past the owner's office every day. So, and we're on the third floor. So to get to the third floor, you've got to pass the second floor, which is where our GM's office is. So
yeah,
as soon as you're in, there's networking opportunities that you would never imagine. And it all starts with the ticket office, who holds a very high and important role. So
definitely,
definitely unique opportunities come from it, but it's an amazing start, and it doesn't end there. That's for sure.
That's right. No, I love that. Well, Jeff, it's great to see you. I'm going to bring Mike Oken here as well to have him introduce yourself. Jeff, thank you very much for joining us and sharing a little bit about your background. Jeff's next class will be starting in the third week of March 21st. And as obviously you guys can tell, he's very knowledgeable and passionate about his side of the business. So Jeff, hopefully we get another big group in there for you. And thanks for joining in. Okay.
Thanks so much, Ike. I appreciate
All
it.
right.
Good to see you, Mike.
Jeff. Yep.
Hey,
Mike.
Jeff. Yeah, good to see you guys. Jeff, Ike, Dr. Lashbrook, and I see some really familiar names here. And I can't stay long. We've got a game here we're getting ready for drop in less than an hour. So I just wanted to drop by. A great hour with Rick and lots of insight. He's going to be starting up a program for individuals interested, specifically working on the agent side as it relates to hockey. And again, it's nice to see some familiar names, people that have taken the courses in the past that I'm involved with, hockey GM and scouting, and also hockey analytics, along with Harry Sinden, Dino Caputo, and Claire Cornish, and then some of the folks that have graduated from the program and on to working in the industry, like Jeff, who has started on the ground floor, so to speak, and it sounds like he's moved his way up to the third floor with the Minnesota Wild.
That's no pun intended there, as Dr. Lashbrook would say. But yeah, no, it's great to have you in as well, Mike. Do you want to give? We won't keep you obviously too long, but you want to kind of give a little bit of a background, not only of yourself, kind of tell us what your day job is, and then a little bit about the two courses that you mentor for us.
Yeah, you know what? I work with the Peterborough Petes in the Ontario Hockey League as a general manager, and then with SMWW, I've been working with them since 2006 in the hockey GM and scouting program, and we subsequently added the hockey analytics. Harry Sinden, Dino Caputo, and Claire Cornish, who I previously mentioned, all have a tremendous amount of experience in those areas. And with regards to the hockey GM and scouting, we give the students an opportunity to get an understanding of the various aspects of the hockey industry, from the history to the role of a GM, to CBAs and agents, to scouting, and then technology. And then with hockey analytics, I mean, it's changing almost weekly. And with the program, we bring on a lot of guests who have experience working at various levels within the hockey industry, whether it be programmers, whether it be data analysis, whatever the case may be. And again, it's an opportunity to learn the fundamentals so that when you go out to seek that first opportunity to get your foot in the door, having some of the foundation knowledge, will help you do just that.
Yeah, I love that. It's very comprehensive, and I think it really kind of lays a great foundation for those that want to learn the business side of hockey, want to get into scouting, analytics, that kind of thing. So you've had quite a few successful people pass through your virtual doors with those classes, and I think you got to be proud of what students come out learning and being able to say they can do.
Yeah, you know what? It's a great opportunity, to get a better understanding of the hockey industry, and then in some cases it's because you want to work within the industry. Other cases it's maybe you've got a son or daughter that's coming up through the minor ranks. So you just want to better understand how to navigate, opportunities for them. So
yeah,
again, I am going to have to run, but I would like to
yes.
again,
best of luck with tonight.
Say hi to everybody. I see a lot of familiar names. It's great. And hopefully with everything headed in the right direction, we'll be able to maybe see everybody in person at the NHL Career Conference in Montreal in early July, and we'll be able to reconnect in person, not just virtually.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself. Best of luck to who you guys play tonight, Mike. Who do you got?
We got the Ottawa 67s in town. They made it past the trucker convoy, and we're ready to roll here.
You're ready to roll. All right. Well, go Pete's. Best of luck. Mike's next class for Hockey Dream and Scouting starts next week as well, February 7th. So, Mike, great to see you. Thanks for joining in and sharing a little bit with us. We'll let you go. And yeah, like I said, go Pete's.
Take care. Be well, everyone.
Yep. You as well. Thanks, Mike. All right, so that's going to pretty much wrap it up for our chat here tonight. I will be happy to answer any questions as it relates to kind of our course framework. I had the privilege and honor of actually working with Rick Curran on kind of building the curriculum that he kind of presented to us. So I can really speak to the fact that I think you guys are going to have a great time learning from him. Obviously, we got a little bit of a preview of what he's like and what he'll be able to share with you guys over the 8 weeks once that starts next week, the week of February 7th. So if there are any questions on just kind of SMWW related things, I'd be happy to answer that. I can say all of our classes are 8 weeks. Rick does have his chats on Thursday nights from 6 to 7 Pacific or 9 to 10 Eastern. We offer a resume redesign service at the end of all of our classes so that we can put the skills that you've learned on your resume from the hockey agent course or really any of our courses. We have obviously the career conference that Mike kind of mentioned that is at the NHL draft. We follow wherever the draft goes. So the last time we were able to host it was in Vancouver. There's also the opportunity to get tickets to the actual NHL draft, so you guys can see in person live, who's getting drafted, get to boo Gary Bettman, which is always kind of a fun thing to be able to do. So I think some really great opportunities for everyone to enjoy here. So if there are any questions, feel free to unmute your microphone or raise your hand. Otherwise, I won't keep you guys for too much longer. It's been a wonderful, wonderful session. Really happy to have everyone here. So I do see Dave just unmuted your microphone. Dave, do you have something for me?
Yeah, just a quick question. I kind of alluded to it, but for career transitions, either those that have been in long careers and now transitioning or not so long.
Yeah.
Relative to the resume review service, a one-time seminar perhaps where we can leverage our past skills, whatever they might be, and having you all take a look because you would know necessarily, hey, you didn't think about that, but that is an outstanding cross skill for blank, for scouting, for GM, what have you.
Yeah.
So that kind of input and feedback, I think would be really helpful. Just curious if we have done it, might do it, anything along those lines.
Yeah, I think really where a lot of the people get the most out of the resume redesign service is if they provide a number of different items. One is kind of your previous background. Obviously, the resume is going to show that anyway, but just kind of more of in depth about, what you've done and the skills that you've had on there or that you've used. And if those aren't listed on the resume, of course, we want to get that on there. And then second, obviously letting our team know what class or classes that you have taken. So, whether it be the hockey agent course, hockey gym and scouting, whatever it may be, all of those come with a certain skill sets that we've identified that you have an opportunity to learn in these classes that we then put on your resume. And then thirdly, is identifying jobs, or at least job links that you are interested in applying for, so that again, the team can kind of review what that job posting may be and make sure that it's tailored for what you're looking to do. So whether it be entry level, mid level, or kind of higher management, there's obviously kind of some differentiating factors there with your resume, and we want to make sure that we're obviously are tailoring it as best as we can for what you're looking for.
Got it. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Great question there, Dave. Okay, let's see. And I don't see anyone else with an unmuted microphones or a raised hand, which is good. So hopefully we did get at least most of your questions answered here for tonight. The link for this, or rather the recording link for this Doc Talk, will become available for us tomorrow, and then I will be sending it out. So don't feel like you needed to write everything down or anything like that. So you'll have an opportunity to go back and listen to that again. And yeah, hopefully we see a handful of you in not only Rick Curran's course, but also really any of our hockey or the other classes that we have to offer. So with that, I will leave you all and enjoy the rest of your afternoons and evenings. Hopefully you all enjoyed them, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Okay. All right. Bye, guys.